Republican in Congress, be it the House or the Senate.
Not yet.
Not yet. Now what's sad about that is we're in 2012. That's a pretty sad statement. And I especially emphasize that of no black female governor. Because in 2010, we had 29 women running for 15 positions. And not one of them was a black woman running for governor. And I bring that up in particular because some people like to talk about just how diverse one party is and how open it is. And when I won the county chairmanship in North Carolina, I was the first black for either party in Western North Carolina. And I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, the hood, Cleveland. And to win the vice chairmanship in North Carolina as the first black since the party's inception, March 27, 1867, is rather embarrassing. And so I bring this up because as we talk about, as Andrew was just bringing up about where we are in our stats and looking at things, you know, everybody likes to say we've come so far. But you have to ask yourself, how far have we really come? How far are we really when we look at our communities, when we think about how bad off our neighborhoods are? When Brandon brings up the issue about the urban communities and how many of them are being led by what party? It's not an opinion. Those are the facts. You gotta ask those questions. And so again, the issue is, again, it's not so much about being loyal one way or another. It's about being critical and being honest with yourself and say, are we better off? That's really what the question is. Are we better off? And if we're not better off, then what do we have to do in order to get better? I don't care if it's a D, an R, an L, an M, or whatever it may be. But what does it take for our communities to be better off? Because we can talk about social justice all day long, but individual responsibility has to step up there somewhere.
I also think that in this age of Obama, a lot of us have been silent. If this was President Bush and black unemployment was what it is now, there'd be outrage. We'd be marching. In fact, John Conyers said that. Congressman Conyers said that we'd be marching on the White House right now if we had the kind of relationship in terms of it was over a year that went on between Congressional Black Caucus couldn't even get a meeting with the president. So, I mean, I really think we need to be honest. And we need to look at other communities. Look at the Latino community. They have 2 senators, 2 governors, Republican, New Mexico, woman, Susana Martinez, and Brian Sandoval in Nevada. We need to make sure that we're exercising our role in speaking up as a community to make sure our issues are ones that are talked about and ones that are influencing the debate. All right, question in the back?
I don't have Twitter, so. My name is Will Lane. I went to the University of San Francisco. And as I'm a registered Democrat, and I consider myself very liberal, and I think that what the problem that I'm faced with a lot of time is trying to reconcile the goals of the Democratic Party with my own views. Many times I find myself voting defensively, trying to keep what I don't want out more than what I actually want in. And my question to the panel is how do you face that as a being registered as a Republican?
Give us an example, one of where you felt conflicted, where between
a lot of social issues I think that the Democratic Party faces, even on the local level, because I can agree a lot with what you're saying, especially me being from Los Angeles. I believe that a lot of inner cities around the nation that are black are taken advantage of by Democratic people that are running for office at the local level especially. However, I usually vote Democrat because I don't want a Republican in for whatever reason or for whatever the issues are.
Well, that's my question. Like, what are the issues for you? And this is not like a girl. I'm genuinely interested because this right here, the behavioral conflict, is what is so fascinating about this entire discussion. Because you are not alone. The black politic, body politic, is more majority conservative if you just talk about the issues. If you remove the R and the D from the specific policy issue and just present it as, would you rather do this or do this? You'd be surprised how many people are actually in line with the conservative, approach to it. Not necessarily Republican, the conservative approach to it, as opposed to what the liberal approach would be. But yet, that when it comes to actually voting and exercising that behaviorally, still goes the other way. It's almost counterintuitive. So I just wanted an example of if you said like, I don't want a Republican in there because of why?
Not, I don't want a Republican in there, but I'm saying for the candidates that are running for those positions, some of the things that they were running behind, as in cutting city pensions for city employees, as in privatizing schools, or even promoting charter schools. That's something that I just personally believe. I mean, we don't have to get into
Right.
anything
I'm
like
just
that.
curious.
But
what issues it was for you.
those are some of the issues that recently that I faced with. So again, my question is, I find myself having difficulty trying to reconcile my own beliefs with the Democratic Party, and I want to know how do you deal with that as
Well, I would tell you somebody that definitely was a registered, active Democrat at one point. I think you have to decide on what your values are, and you have to decide as an individual where you stand and what the priorities are for your values. As I got older and I started being very reflective and became very spiritual, the one thing about the Frederick Douglass Foundation is we're devoted Christians, first and foremost. And so many of our decisions, matter of fact, all of our decisions are based on biblical scripture. We are pro-life. We don't apologize for that. We don't waffle about that. We believe in traditional marriage. Marriage is composed of one man and one woman at one time. That's where we stand. And again, we don't apologize for that. Those are values that we stand for, I believe in, and a lot of my decisions are based on. And so if I find myself in conflict, I have to ask myself, not only what would Jesus do, but what does the word say? Because I think the word is very clear about the guidelines. For me, you have to do the same thing. What is it that your values, where do your values stand at? And I'll give it to you this way as an attorney. As an attorney, there are going to be people that are going to come to you and say, I got all this money, and I need you to get me off. Will your values have anything to do with that? Or will you say, I'll take the money? You're going to be the one that has to decide that. Nobody in this room can decide that for you. Some of your peers will say, take the money. Others will say, if I don't believe that way, I cannot support this person, or I cannot defend this person, or I cannot represent this person. You're going to be the one that has to make that decision. I think it's the same thing that falls in line with you when it comes down to politics. Where do you stand? And then do you fall asleep at night feeling good about yourself, about the decisions that you make? That's an individual decision. It's an individual accountability. And it's the only person that can make that decision is you.
I think your question focuses more on what you may perceive as a cognitive dissonance kind of a approach to politics. Like you think that we are voting against or acting against our own interests as Republicans. And I think that that's actually, that's not true. We would dispute that. I don't think it's against our interests as minorities to be conservative or Republicans. Overall, broad policy issues. You know, specific local issues sometimes, I mean, there are times where at a local level, where an independent or a Democrat, I'm not just going to vote party line just because. It's about exactly what Tim just said. What is in your interest? For example, I have a few friends who now that they were diehard Obama, this and that, blah, 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 who are becoming business owners, who are aspiring business owners, or who are starting to get into the real world and say, well, wait a minute, what do you mean he wants to tax us more? So if I start a business, that means I have to pay, and I'm successful, and I create jobs. Now I'm penalized for that because I'm not paying my fair share, whatever the hell that means. They go, well, wait a minute now. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. And possibly changing their party affiliation from Democrat to unaffiliated or independent. I don't have a problem with that. Frankly, I don't care how many registered Republicans there are, because as long as people are taking the plank out of their own eyes and looking at what the result is of the policies you have been continuing to support, and whether that's the positive result of what you think is in your best interest. The definition